Our plan is to try to cover 6 topics. Can character be taught and measured? What is the role of failure? What about parents? Grit, and then what is character? Character, moral character versus performance character.
The word character is, I do think it's central. The thing is I think as our institutions, all sorts of schools, have lots of different people from lots of different backgrounds in, the notion of defining character is not really clear. I think lots of people have very different definitions of it. There's research around what actually does constitute well-being, what does constitute character, that hasn't actually really seeped into much even in the public works. I do think you can improve people's ability to be optimistic if you have conversations with them about that. Even the research shows on these non-cognitive strengths that they're more malleable than things like IQ. I consider more the process of saying, okay, let's try and define some of these strengths and then be more intentional about giving kids narrative feedback, so dialogic feedback on these strengths about how they're done.
Yeah. There's some wonderful examples in the book about how the teacher, I'm so many of you are, focuses on the small steps of what you need to correct this thing to get to this next step, and it is really a modeling process.
And I think we went, I think a lot of us are in this business. I think you are probably in this business because you believe in that ability for kids to grow. You know, whether it's academically, whether it's their character, we all believe in this because there's sort of this belief in growth. I just think that sometimes we're not doing as maybe an intentional job and a pervasive job as we should be doing on these types of strengths.
We are what we repeatedly do. Excellence then is not an act, but a habit. And so if you model these but I guess it means you as an educator have to tell kids what kind of behavior is expected in this particular category.
Right, so that's why we did, I don't want to go in too long into the process of this, but we actually went through a pretty involved process at KIT and Riverdale in saying, okay, we asked children, parents, and teachers, when you're optimistic, what does it look like? And we got lists of 250 to 200 to around 300 behaviors for each one of these strengths.
Grit, because that seems to be the new buzzword. You have grit. How did that emerge?
But the idea of resilience plus passion. And so something that you're really deeply you engaged in, you've got some deep understanding of, but you're also able to persist through the sort of boring ideas of deliberative practice, of really having to learn something and practice something and do something well. The experts around this believe can be taught. I think the question comes is we're now starting off this next phase of this to try and say, okay, what intervention can you actually do that increases grit? I mean, we have a lot of belief that, let's say, if you've got a crew team, people would argue, some people who do crew would argue that's a grit-inducing activity. Because you're challenged and you don't succeed immediately and you are forced to rethink that and bounce back. And there's a certain capacity involved with being able to do that.
So then kids are productive is in extracurricular activity, is in trying out for the play, and getting a part or not getting a part, having to know your lines, messing up, or being on the sports team, being the journalist, being music, art, where you make mistakes, and you fall short, and then when you've done something, you have done it. So I don't think you can talk about grit without talking about failure and the opportunity to fail.
Ways that kids not necessarily can fail, but just have a setback. I think I actually like the word setback sometimes. You want the kid to sort of understand that it's all right that it's safe failure, that you can have a setback and you can actually recover from that and still do well. And I think that there's a level of objectivity, if you're a professional in this, that you know when a kid is really hurt by a setback and when they need to be supported, and when other times they need a kick up the backside and said, like, get going with it.
Provides indicating that this resilience, grit, whatever you want to call it, is a better predictor of college success and success after college than a GPA. Are your people impressed by that?
I would say, again, I'd say it's sort of 50-50. I wouldn't say everyone is totally on board with that.
And I spend most of my time in public schools, and I think you don't know how lucky you are.
Right.
Because they're just stultifying places and getting more and more so.
I think the notion of false productivity is an interesting thing. So I think there's lots of kids who feel that they're doing a lot. The question is, what are they actually achieving? And I think Seligman's work is pretty clear on this, that happiness comes from being meaningful and purposeful in your life. It's not, it's not like just sort of suddenly this passion is developed. It's actually a lot of hard work to develop the passion. And so I think, how do you figure out that notion of finding meaning, then combines happiness and productivity? I hope that we can get more of a dialogue around this. There are no set answers. There's not good information about implementation. It's great if people experiment and then share what they're doing, experimenting with this work. And I appreciate people coming out and being welcome to have a discussion here, and I'm hoping we can continue this discussion and get even others. I think it's important to get the public school, the charter schools, the universities engaged in thinking about this very issue. I think
the world has changed, and the kids need to be formulating questions, and they can be producing knowledge. They can have air quality monitors and go check the air quality and share it with every other school in Connecticut, and figure out anomalies and understand and really create knowledge and have that sense of being productive. And I think personally think that's how you develop that grit and resilience and strength, because you're doing something great.
And can I just follow on from that
Sure,
for a second? I do think how we do this within the sort of academic curriculum is really essential. How do we merge that idea of that it's all right, send the kids going out and failing and not finding this and then coming back, and they're sort of thinking and doing, and building these strengths within the academic curriculum.
It can't just be at the foul line.
Exactly.
But I think it's wonderful, and I'm not at all surprised that Taft has taken the lead in thinking this through and taking on this challenge.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.